This is a book review for Lost Wife Saw Barracuda, True Stories of a Sharm el Sheikh Scuba Diving Instructor. There's a title. This book came about because it involved me uprooting my life and going somewhere completely different in every sense of the word, and what I went through. And I know a lot of people have thought about this in their time. There was a very popular book back in the 80s called A Year in Provence, and about a couple who upped and left their UK life, went to France, and it showed all the trials and tribulations. It was very popular. I think, it was a bestseller for many, many years. And I had absolutely no intention of doing the same because I was quite happy in my life in the UK, had a good job and good friends, and life was good. And then, in fact, it was so good, I decided to book a scuba diving holiday to Sharm el Sheikh. I'd seen it on TV. I've seen all the diving movies and the amazing documentaries, Jacques Cousteau's Undersea World. I swam a lot. So I found myself on a plane heading out there and standing on the beach in my wetsuit and my scuba gear with a couple of hours of tuition. I was about to go in for my very first underwater experience with scuba. What can I say? It was the most mesmerizing, impacting thing that's probably ever happened to me in my life. Now, some people can take it or leave it, others can dive once or twice a year. But when I was out there in the many years that came after, I met so many people where scuba diving had such a profound impact on them that they just absolutely became addicted to it. They had to do it all the time, if not every day, then as often as possible. People were coming out 4 or 5 times a year, using up all their holidays. And what I wanted to do was produce a book that really showed what it's like to not just leave a country and go somewhere else, but get into this profession of scuba diving from the instructor's point of view and very much from the student's point of view. So what would it be like to live this life? What would it be like to learn to dive? And I found that my sport was surrounded by a lot of myths and misconceptions, usually thanks to Hollywood. So films like Deep Blue Sea and Jaws 2 and Jaws of Revenge and This Time It's Personal, and the list goes on and on and on. I think they're fantastic films, but they really don't do my job any good. So there was this compulsion to put the record straight, to actually gain a few customers. It's always nice to entice people over, especially in light of these scary monster films, and really sell the sport for what it really is. It's about the sensation of scuba, being underwater, floating in weightlessness, seeing all this incredible stuff, and the absolute laughs you can have in this game. It's full of fun. Now, another angle to this book, and there's many threads in all of my books, simply because there's threads in life. And also it occurs in the Middle East. Now, certain things happen when the Middle East meets the West. And at the best of times, they're interesting and entertaining. And at the worst of times, then it's utter mayhem and sometimes tragedy. I lived and worked in a place that often doesn't take life too seriously, which in one respect is nice. On the other hand, I had a very serious type of job, which is to stop people dying on holiday or getting seriously injured. And let's face it, this is a wonderful, fun sport, but unlike others where the downside is you slice a shot into the woods playing golf, or your forehand isn't so good, and in tennis you send one into the net, or you get relegated, or somebody calls a foul. The downside of this sport when it goes wrong is drowning and serious injury. So that is why it's so well structured. In this book, Lost Wife Saw Barracuda is a journey, lots of journeys. So we have the expat life, we have the Egyptian life. Egyptian people are quite incredible. They're very friendly. The whole setup is friendly. We're in the holiday business. We're in the south of the Sinai and Sharm, and it is fun. The weather's good. It's people are happy. And I remember coming back from the first diving holiday with a set of photographs, and everyone said, "You look so happy. Your face is grinning from ear to ear. It's changed you." And It did. It changed me in many ways. People say, do what you love. What's your passion? Do it all the time. And it's sound advice. It's absolutely, but it has to also give you a livelihood. Could diving give you a livelihood and you do this for many years? We'll come to that soon. We're all in this mishmash of a melting pot. And what's good about Sharm? Well, the whole world is worried about people from one country going to another country and immigration and the whole thing. And by the way, there's a lot of talk about all the Arabs coming to Europe. Go there. It's empty. They're pleased to see you. There's a lot of fun. There's plenty of room. And that's what I did. I just simply went to the Middle East, to Sharm el Sheikh. But Sharm is particularly different because nobody is from there. Only the Bedouins, and they've been there hundreds of years. It's such a new town. There isn't even a graveyard because nobody's from there. People died. They send them back to where they came from. But that's how new it is. And you have the Germans, the Italians, the French, the English, the Russians, the Ukrainians. Everybody, even Egyptians, are rarely from Sharm because they come from the big cities, Cairo, Alexandria. They kind of migrated for the holidays. It's very good work there, and it's grown. So the book covers a lot of life in this place, and it really brings out the true endearing greatness of this city that just refuses to die. Now, my first book was a Thisagorn. It was, I won't say serious, it was about World War II, a shipwreck. It is, people died in it. It has to be very respectful. And I wanted Lost Wives or Barracuda to be the fun side. There are lots and lots of laughs in this book, nearly every page, because people do things that are just funny, crazy, and off the clock, whether on the land or on the water. And it's my job to deal with it. So lots of laughs, but occasionally things do go wrong. And we've all seen the TV sometimes where there's some horrendous news, and it's often somewhere far-flung, far away. It's terrible. There's a bombing, a plane crash, or some sort of disaster, or a naturally environmental effect. And we're saddened, and we think, well, thank God that wasn't me, and it is a long way away, and hopefully it doesn't happen here. One night it was my turn, and this occurred back in 2005 in Sharm el Sheikh, just not long after the London bombings, when I was out in the evening, and then suddenly the whole world came crashing down. We were hit by 3 terrorist bombs, and one went off 100 meters away from me. It shook the whole building I was in. And learning from the London bombs, and of course, as divers, we're also medics, we want to help out. So I actually went towards that bomb, knowing that there might be others, because at this stage of the game, people were bombing people, not buildings. It got very sinister. And I got halfway there, and then one went off behind me. And I carried on to help out. And what I discovered was absolute carnage. I won't go into detail here, but it was as bad as you could possibly imagine. And this time it was on my doorstep. It's where I live. And I think with people in the major cities over here, if they have disasters, they don't leave, they stay there, it's their home. This was our home. And I wanted to include this in the book. I gave it a lot of thought because, it's supposed to be a happy book and a very positive book, but then life isn't always as you plan it, and this was a real event with real people and real consequences. And what I didn't like was a lot of the negative coverage. We've had a few incidents in Sharm over the years, probably the same as anywhere else, but being a holiday resort, it's supposed to be paradise, and people go on holiday, they expect perfection. But supposing I came on holiday to your place, is it perfect? Do things happen? Probably not. And our town was being tainted badly. Yes, it happened, but people do go on, and life does carry on. They deal with it very well. They were disgusted with the event. There were protests at the time when protests weren't even allowed. and people were on the streets and they were very much against it. This was their town. They got very upset. I got very upset. This was my livelihood, and friends had been lost, and your whole everything was destroyed. But it bounced back, and I don't think people realised how well it bounced back and how they dealt with it, and that's very much in the book. So it was a tough subject, but it needed to be aired, and I have the utmost respect and admiration for all the people of Sharm who rallied together, and especially the guests and the tourists who came back and really supported the town. On a happier note, the class is a group of 4 students, and we follow their trials and tribulations through this beginner's course. And I think diving guests and students are a bit like relatives. You can't choose them either. And even if you could, where's the fun? There's an unpredictability, however much you think you know, and whatever you might guess about people. This is the incredible thing about the job, is that you never know what you're going to get. And it brings out the absolute very, very best in you, because you have to keep them safe, you have to keep them entertained, you have to get them from A to B. You've got to turn them into very good divers. It all culminates in graduation day underwater style, and it features also trips out to sea, the wonders of the national park and the beautiful coral gardens, so that they get to let the shackles off and actually put it to use. Another chapter features a little bit about the thistlegum. I know there's a whole book dedicated to this, my first book, and this is the diver side, where things don't always go right. One trip there, I had to rescue a guy. I don't quite know how he managed it, but his diving pants fell round his ankles 100 feet below the surface inside a shipwreck. Another time I was diving around the wreck, and I heard this clanking sound, and I saw this anchor bouncing up and down on a crate of live shells from World War II, and saw that it was our anchor. So I had to retrieve this and take it off and keep everything safe, but it had me going for quite a while. There's lots of other diving stories, because when you have in the region up to 10,000 people a day in the water, swimming, snorkeling, diving, water sports, things happen. Usually tremendous fun, thank heavens, but occasionally something goes wrong. Maybe not on your boat, but you're nearby. So it deals with the responsibilities, the consequences, and the results of these incidents, and it puts them into context. Ultimately, diving is safe. I can say that, because when you learn to dive, you are then in control of the things that you need to prevent accidents. 95% of a beginner's course is about safety and problem solving. So this is where the myths and misconceptions come in, and the movies, as I said, are rife at this. When you know what to do and you plan well, then it's really down to your attitude and the skills you employ. So you do have a lot of control in the water of what happens to you. So if you're inspired to become a scuba diver, then it's quite a good deal. To learn to dive is a lot cheaper than becoming a NASA astronaut, where to achieve weightlessness is probably hundreds of millions of dollars. Fighter pilot, next best thing, is about tens of millions of dollars. But on a scuba diving course where you can have zero gravity, it's just a few $100s. So think again, next time you book a scuba course or a new activity, it could change your life, and you never know. It might grab you by the collar, lead you this way, and you could end up like me, moving country. You will be a lot more resourceful than you think you are. Perhaps we do warm to comfort and for an easy life, and we get set in our ways and everything's kind of civilized. Why not? People have died to actually achieve that, so I'm not knocking it. But when you go to another country, especially one that's a little bit removed from what you're used to, you will have the resources. They will come out of you. You may not even know they're there, but over the nearly 20 years I spent in that part of the world, there were things that were going on, and I've covered these in other books because some of them deserve a separate book by themselves, that was so outrageous, so wonderful, so life-changing, and then, you know, impacting, that you deal with it. You're able to deal with the most you know, outrageous situations sometimes, simply because that's what we're designed to do. So if you're feeling a little bit sedate and stuck in your ways, then give it another thought, because you never know what you're capable of, and it's much better to find out than never find out. And you don't have to do it the hard way, but leaving, new house, new job, new country, new everything is very, very refreshing. And as a writer out there, the word writer's block simply does not exist in Sharm el Sheikh. If it does, you must be blindfolded and locked in a cupboard somewhere, because material unfolds around your feet at such an alarming rate that it's almost got to queue up. And one of the biggest problems I had with writing out there was to tear myself away from all the action and actually sit down and put it on paper. And one of the reasons I did that was because some of it was so unbelievable, I wanted to actually write it down before I considered that I might have imagined it all. Recently, I have been back in the UK for quite some months, and the longest stretch I've had over here. A lot of what went on out there I just took for granted. It was so normal. You've heard of the expression, the normalization of deviancy, when things are just so regularly upside down and crazy. The crazy is the new normal. And I absolutely had no idea of the big picture, the impact it had, until I got back here for the best part of a year. And I think, did that really happen? I'm only glad I wrote it all down along the way, and I haven't finished yet. There's more books coming out, but it really makes you realize sometimes the differences between over here and over there. So if you want a really good read with lots of comedy, lots of excitement, it's a very rewarding book, occasionally tragic, but in a positively shown. And it'll make you realize exactly how valuable life is, how much you shouldn't waste it, and that you really are capable of a lot more than you can think. Lost Wives Saw Barracuda, True Stories of a Sharm el Sheikh Scuba Diving Instructor, is available on Kindle, Amazon Kindle, so worldwide, over 15 countries. Hope you've enjoyed this video, and hope you enjoy the read, and see you in the next video.